Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Story number 1. Home Away from Home, written by C-SPAN. The irritating thing about faster-than-light communication is that, in order for it to be truly effective, it has to be invented twice. Sure, it's nifty to have lagless telecommunications across a whole planet or directly remote control over rovers on Mars. But that's nothing compared to interstellar communication. The problem is, in order for there to be interstellar communication, there has to be someone to talk to on another star. Going to other stars solely to talk to the place you just left is a bit of a silly idea. So that leaves aliens. And since there's no practical way to talk with said aliens without a faster-than-light communication system, both ends of the conversation need to invent an entirely separately. When humanity first switched on its interstellar telephone for the first time, everyone was pleasantly surprised to find someone else already on the line. The aliens, who had been patiently sending out messages and waiting for a response for about 50 years, were overjoyed to finally have someone to talk to. Well, talk may be a strong word. For reasons that nobody without multiple doctorates could adequately explain, FTL communication was limited to binary on-off signals. This presented several challenges. Imagine, for a moment, you are locked in a small room with nothing but a light switch. You are informed that you have a counterpart in another room, who you have never met before and whose language you do not speak. Your light switch controls the light in their room. They have an identical light switch that controls the light in your room. Your task is to accurately convey complex messages to your counterpart and receive messages in return, using nothing but the light switch. This is roughly analogous to the challenge of two newly connected species faced. Fortunately for everyone involved, there were a whole bunch of very smart mathematicians, linguists, scientists, and experts of all fields on both sides of the line. And a viable communication standard was worked out. The fact that it took 3 decades was actually seen as a major accomplishment. Of course, a species doesn't get to the level of interstellar telecommunications by being content with things, and everyone involved was eager to actually meet their new potential friends from across the very large pond. Unfortunately, while both species were located in the same galaxy, they were still multiple trillions of kilometers apart. Physics was just barely okay with sending massless particles faster than light, but decided to draw a hard line at sending mass. Any and all attempts either failed utterly or caused physics to throw a hissy fit and storm off in a huff, resulting in regions of space where the laws of time no longer function properly, or something. It's not like anyone was ever kind enough to return and tell everyone what was going on in there, so faster-than-light travel was off the table. Both species attempted to solve the distance barrier in different ways. The aliens, being the much more sensible of the two species, continued to try and develop faster-than-light travel, and also invested heavily in telepresence robotics to better emulate actual face-to-face conversations. The humans collectively decided that the aliens were taking a boring approach and opted to just pop by for a visit. Preparing ships for a journey that would last millennia is a difficult task. There are no gas stations in interstellar space, so each ship needs to be its own entirely self-contained ecosystem. It turns out that building a perfectly sealed ecosystem that would be able to sustain itself for millennia is hard. So hard, in fact, that it was deemed easier to take a pre-built ecosystem and just move that instead. Fortunately, there was a very handy pre-built ecosystem just laying around called Earth. Moving an entire planet through interstellar space is a bad idea. There are many problems with the concept, not the least of which was that because interstellar space was really, really cold, the entire biosphere would freeze to a halt long before you reached your destination. This problem, and many others, were solved in the most over-the-top way possible. If the planet couldn't survive outside the solar system itself should be moved. This was, obviously, insane. But humanity was mostly a race of mad bastards with too much confidence in their own abilities and an unhealthy degree of spite towards the very laws of nature themselves. And so, with the attitude that can largely be described as, well, I'll be damned if I let the universe tell me where I can park my solar system, humanity embarked on the largest engineering project ever. A stellar engine is a simple idea that is extraordinarily hard to execute. If you can somehow build a thruster large enough to move the sun, everything orbiting the sun will trail along with it like debris in the wake of the speedboat. The challenge, of course, is moving the sun. The solution, as implemented, involved a lot of electromagnetic field manipulation, solar plasma extraction, nuclear fusion, and, somewhat counterintuitively, a thruster pointed back at the sun for counterbalance. It was the sort of thing that got a lot of engineers very, very excited, and everyone else very, very bored. Building a planet-sized megastructure designed to move a star is something that takes a long time and a lot of resources. As the largest infrastructure project ever, it was also great for the economy. The engine, affectionately nicknamed Thrusty McThrustface, was completed in a mere few centuries and was ceremonially activated on the 500th anniversary of first contact. The journey itself would take much longer and many more generations, but everyone agreed that it would be worth it to see the looks on the aliens' faces when we finally arrived. End of story. Story number 2, Little Brother, written by Infernalism. His instinct had been to browbeat the quivering drone with a healthy dose of anger. Instead, he calmed the drone with a few perfectionary strokes of his antenna upon the drone's head before instructing him to repeat himself.
The pirate says he's from Vibrant Life.
It, the hunter thought, not he. Outcasts were no longer one of the people. A lie, a filthy untruth, an obscene social habit picked up from socializing with non-people species, no doubt, but was such to be expected from the hiveless scum outcasts. Vibrant Life was destroyed 10 cycles ago by a rogue void star on their way to colonize a new system. Such was the truth, given down by the speakers of explanation as to why the whole hive had been lost. Even scattered as they were, they felt the expiration of 1 billion people, and the speakers had addressed the issue after investigation.
Yes, Hunter, but...
Now came the burst of anger, part thought, part scent, bathing the drone in its superior's fury. But what?
He hasn't been shown. He has his antennae.
That's not possible.
His whole crew has their antennae. All of them.
The report was simplicity itself. An alien craft had been captured by Warm Spring on their way to the new home system to colonize and spread. The ship was made of metal and alien materials that stunk of hydrocarbons and burned his eyes even at 50 marching units. The pirate captain stunk as well, but they'd set up an incense around him to stifle the stench. The pirate captain himself was strange, as the drone had reported. He had his antennae, so he wasn't an outcast, but he was cloaked in a strange materials, a custom with some people that colonized colder worlds until their bodies adapted to the cold. It wasn't cold, but he still wore his drapings. Some were natural leather, crude hide and flesh from other species. Others were hunks of metal and strange-smelling things that weren't unpleasant by default, but were disconcerting in their alienness. The captain stood when the hunter walked in and, to his everlasting shock, gave him an immaculate greeting, one warrior to another. I am Scout Longrunner, and I'm here to give my report. To Speaker Truthwalker from Hunter Surestrike, commander of Warm Spring, regarding Vibrant Life. I'm including the report of the hiveless person that identifies himself as Scout Longrunner of Vibrant Life. He and his crew of 40 were picked up last week, and after vigorous interrogation, all of them gave the same standard report with negligible differences. You must forgive the report's strange wording, as many of the words contained therein are no equivalent in the people's language. A glossary will follow the report to try and explain some of the terms. Either all of them are speaking the same non-truth while managing to mask both thoughts and smells, an astonishing feat, or our speakers have lied to us. I leave this matter in your hands." We were ordered to a new system discovered by the seers some cycles earlier. They found a lush system with a number of habitable worlds and many rooms around a gas giant and a paradise-class world as well. The seers' report indicated that the system was occupied by a spacefaring civilization that had colonized many of those moons and was largely concentrated around the paradise world. My crew and I were ordered in to study the system ahead of the hive's arrival. They had picked up on the hive's arrival. We ran into automated defenses at the very edge of the system. Nuclear homing mines, weapon platforms, nothing we hadn't seen before. We never saw any natives. They stayed ahead of us, evacuating to the paradise world. We got repeated transmissions from the species. Something our translator stated was a simple statement. "Wait for little brother!" Whatever that meant. Again, nothing we hadn't seen before. We disabled what we could, and our callers sent back detailed maps of the defense networks and continued scouting inward into the system. They never set up a single line of manned defense, just automated systems, minefields. By the time Vibrant Life arrived, we found the simplest and easiest path inward to the paradise world, and we called back to the Hive with this pathing for them to take. The Hive had made little work of their defense networks and fields. Vibrant Life was vast, a true hive in every sense of the word. It dwarfed some of the moons of the system and carried enough firepower to decimate a world without pause. The species on this paradise had no idea what was coming for them. They had one last line of defense between their moon and the paradise itself, a vast, almost half-spherical network of weapon platforms and automated nuclear missile systems that appeared to be proximity-oriented. So, Vibrant Life simply moved around to the far side, negating this lethal defense entirely. Like many species, this one did not think in 3 dimensions, or so we assumed. Once the Hive had moved to the far side, they set off their singularity bomb, a focused, aimed singular, a void star that was placed on the Hive's flank, catching the Hive between the weapon network and the deadly grasp of the void star's gravity well. We watched as the Hive was struck between the two, horrified, but then cheered as the Hive righted itself and found a balance between the two. We sang the song of conquest as the Hive's surface rippled and opened to show 1,000 plasma cannons coming to bear on the alien metal cities below. When the Hive began to splinter, we had no idea what was happening. It began to burn and melt almost at random. The fields of cultivated plasma cannons melting and bubbling, the great cavernous hangar bays burning. Thousands of attack craft burning in their bays and berthing pits. I can still hear the screaming as they died. Chaos then. The speakers were shouting 12 directives at once, their unity broken by the pain and burning of the Hive. We, at the same time, were frantically trying to find out what was happening. One of my watchers screamed into the connection to switch to infrared, heat vision. We had and nearly burned out all 3 of my eyes. It was coming from their star, or rather from a small world orbiting their star, lancing beams of concentrated light, a makeshift laser. 3 of them, reaching out from that small burnt world, cutting into the Hive, cutting it up like you would do an overripe bit of fruit. The Hive was caught between a lethal weapon platform and the Void Star's raging gravity well. The only way forward was to crash into the planet itself. The other was to go back and go around, and that meant exposure to those lethal lasers for the whole way. So we watched as they tried to brave the weapons platform, and watched as our Hive got torn apart. Billions died as they ejected from the Hive in a survival craft, and they burned them. In the visible spectrum, they simply exploded into carbon dust. Every part, every person trying to escape the Hive was burned alive by those invisible beams, like a great god wiping them away with a swipe of his claw. When the cannons were silenced and no more pods emerged from the dying Hive, 1,000 metal ships lifted off from the paradise world and descended onto the Vibrant Life. We fled, and we've been running and fighting them ever since. I was a scout, but now I am the last remaining hunter, seer, and speaker of the vibrant life. And I bring you the bloody truth, bought at the cost of billions of lives. Stay away from the system. Death lives here. End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barky, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.